If you're suffering with IBS and feeling frustrated and confused about your symptoms, then it's time you got to know your brain-gut connection. Because once you understand what this connection really is and what happens when your brain and your gut stop communicating as they should, not only will your IBS symptoms start to make a whole lot more sense, but you'll also discover the answer to taking back control. So let's dive in. Welcome back, it's Jayne here, and if you're new to this channel is all about helping you regain control of your IBS without drugs and without diets. And today we are talking about your gut-brain connection and how a fault in this connection is responsible for the irregular bowel movements, pain and sensitivity that you're currently experiencing. This is just one of the 5 reasons that I share inside of my free Ultimate Guide to IBS Gut Pain, which you can download just using the link down below in the description. So what is your brain-gut connection? Well, your brain-gut connection, also known as the brain-gut axis, describes the ongoing two-way communication happening between your brain and your digestive system. You see, your brain and your gut are inextricably connected, with your gut sharing many nerve pathways and chemical transmitters with your brain. In fact, scientists actually call your digestive system your brain in your gut, or your second brain, because of the estimated 100 million nerve cells lining your gastrointestinal tract. This second brain, also called your enteric nervous system, is in constant communication with the brain in your head, also part of your central nervous system, with the two sending messages back and forth. Now, most of us instinctively know that our brain and our gut are connected, and the most simple example of this connection in action is to think back to the last time you felt nervous. Did you have butterflies in your stomach, or do certain situations make you feel nauseous? This happens because your gastrointestinal tract is sensitive to emotion. Emotions such as anger, anxiety, sadness, joy, and all of these feelings and others can trigger symptoms and sensations inside of your gut. And the brain's effect on your stomach and your intestines doesn't stop there. In fact, the very thought of eating can release the stomach juices before food even gets there. And this connection actually goes both ways too, with a troubled stomach sending signals back up to your brain. Now, when this two-way communication works perfectly, there's no problem. But when your brain and your gut stop talking to each other as they should, this is when IBS symptoms develop. This is why gastrointestinal disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome, along with reflux hypersensitivity and functional dyspepsia, are called disorders of the gut-brain interaction. They are called disorders of the gut-brain interaction because it's believed that the most critical abnormality is impaired communication between the gut and the brain via the nervous system in both directions. So from the gut to the brain and from the brain to the gut. When this happens and this faulty communication arises, it can cause 2 main issues which are typical of IBS. The first is visceral hypersensitivity. This basically means that your bowel becomes overly sensitive to normal sensations such as gas or fullness, and misinterprets this stimuli inside of your bowel as pain. This happens because the nerves inside of your gut have become hyper alert, they've become hypersensitive, and they signal pain and discomfort when they actually might not need to be doing that. Your brain can also amplify these signals, leading to increased perceived levels of pain. Now, the second issue is called something called altered bowel motility. And this refers to the speed at which food is moving down through your gastrointestinal system and through your bowel. And when this becomes irregular, it can result in constipation, diarrhoea, or a mixture of the two. So I hope at this point that your IBS symptoms are starting to feel less like a mystery and that there's actually a reason for them. And to help demystify IBS even further, we're gonna go on a quick journey inside of your digestive system. And don't worry, I promise I will keep this really simple. So when you eat, the food that is digested travels through your mouth, continues down through your esophagus, which is the tube connecting your throat to your stomach. Then it travels down through your small intestines, then through your colon, which includes your large intestines, and then out of your rectum, also known as your bottom. Now, the part of the bowel that is largely affected by IBS is your large intestine. Your large intestine is part of something called the colon and measures an incredible 5 foot in length. Now, in digestion, its main job is to change the liquid products which travel into it from your small intestine into stools or poo. To do this, it needs to do 2 things. Firstly, it needs to absorb some of that water, which it does through its lining. And the second thing that it needs to do is to push that partially digested food along that 5 foot path to your rectum, which in a normal functioning gut triggers the reflex to go to the toilet. Now, the muscles found in the walls of your large intestines are what pushes this partially digested food along by alternating waves of contractions followed by relaxations. These strong waves of movement propel the soon-to-be stool long distances about 2 or 3 times per day. This process is called peristalsis, which you might remember from your school biology lessons. Now, this next part is really important, so make sure you're listening because I'm about to explain why you are suffering with IBS and why your partner or your best friend isn't. In someone who does not have IBS, those muscular movements in the large intestine and the colon are consistent and coordinated. Digestion happens smoothly without issues 99.9% of the time. The brain and the gut are communicating as they should. However, in your large intestine and in your colon, this unfortunately is not happening. In your gut, these muscular movements are either happening too slowly or happening far too quickly. This is what is called altered bowel motility. If the movements are happening too fast, you're likely going to experience painful cramping. And because the partially digested food passes through way too quickly, not enough water is going to be absorbed and diarrhoea will be the result. This increase in speed can also trigger a very strong reflex or urgent need to go to the toilet. Now, on the other side, if the movements slow down too much, this is when constipation occurs, where too much water is being absorbed and a hard, lumpy stool is the result, which can be difficult and painful to pass. So the major takeaway I want you to walk away with from this video is that your IBS symptoms of diarrhea and constipation are being caused by irregular muscle contractions, which all comes back to faulty messages being sent between your brain and your gut. These inconsistent and uncoordinated muscle contractions are also the reason why you may experience painful spasms. Basically, these are rapid muscle contractions in your colon. This type of movement can also result in waste and air becoming trapped, which can be extremely uncomfortable and painful and can cause excessive bloating or those strange noises happening in your tummy. So what does all of this mean to you? Well, this new understanding of the connection between your brain and your gut and the involvement of your nervous system in IBS helps to explain the effectiveness of mind-gut therapies such as cognitive behavioural therapy and medical hypnotherapy, such as gut-directed hypnotherapy. Because what we know is that our 2 brains, the brain in our head and the brain in our gut, talk to each other. And so therapies that can help one can help the other. And psychological approaches such as CBT and hypnosis can help to improve and strengthen the miscommunication which is currently triggering your IBS symptoms. But whilst your IBS symptoms may be making a lot more sense, there is still one big question I haven't talked about, and that is what caused the initial fallout or this initial miscommunication between your brain and your gut in the first place? Well, in this next video, I talk more about this and the common triggers behind the initial onset of IBS. And if you're enjoying learning about IBS and helping to make sense of what's going on inside your digestive system, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, as there is a whole lot more content here for you. That's it for now. I hope to see you next time.